Hello world, welcome back to How To with the Gem Bot. Today we're going to be cutting and polishing the pavilion, and this one was a little bit tricky, but we figured it out. So we're going to jump right into it. Got our faceting diagram. We're going to start adding this design to the touchscreen like we did the last one, or like we did with the girdle. We're going to start with the P1 facets. And you can see here there's a special note that says to put the P2 facets in two separate groups. So we have a group 1 and a group 2. So we're going to have the group 1 first and the group 2 second. Right now I'm just adding the first group. I already have the P1 facets input. And these index numbers were kind of further apart, so I just used this little text pad input to input the index locations, index numbers. And I just click add row. I should know how to do this from the last video. It looks like I'm doing group 2. When I save it, click round, click load data. You see our girdles there, girdle data's there. And that's all our pavilion data with the different angles. You can see up top we got round selected and triumph selected. Yep, there's our preview. So I think I was saying we could get to the cut page two ways. You could either do it from where we add and save the index and angle numbers, or you could just click the right arrow. I sped this video up a little so we weren't kind of going slow through this tutorial. So I'm going to be doing 8 steps down total, 2 swipes per step down, and we're going to be traveling at 20 steps left, 20 steps right, 20 steps left, 20 steps right, and then it'll step down. And then I'll do that 8 times, and it'll raise the stone 200 steps, go to the next index, and then lower it back down 200 steps. So right now, we've homed the machine. It's setting the first angle automatically. We haven't seen this before. This is after we set the home. Click home set, and then it'll set the angle and index. Our first index is 96, so it won't change that. And then we'll just click close to 0. Moves the stone close to 0. Really, it moves it to in the thousands. But if you pre-calibrated your machine, it'll know exactly where the zero's at. So we got the stone almost about the wheel. Almost at about the wheel. We start our wheel up, start the drip up, start incrementing it down by 1 step till we hear that chatter. And we take notes. We use these notes later. We're cutting with the 600 grit lap, but we use these notes later to figure out how much depth we need to cut the P2 group 1 facets at and P2 group 2 facets at, because they need a different depth of cut. You'll see here in a little bit that I'm doing this 600 to the same depth, and then you'll see the results of that. Kind of throws the design off. Kind of totally washes out the P1 facets, and the P2 facets aren't correct, but it's alright because we're going to 1200 grit and then 3000 grit and then on to polish for this one. So we've seen all this before. It's just doing its thing. I did notice there's a big difference between my 600 grit lap and my 1200 grit lap. 1200 grit lap cuts a lot smoother. It's not as wobbly as the 600. I think my 600 I accidentally ran over with my desk chair, so it's a little warped. That's okay. So we're just going to our second facet. Just changing the index. Cutting at index 11. facets. It's going to move the stone up and right away from the wheel so it could change to the next angle. Speed this part up a bit. Now we're going to set the stone back to the wheel like we initially do. Then it's going to go through the P2 facets. We're still on the 600 grit wheel, so later when we go to the 1200 grit wheel, I'll show you guys how to adjust the depth of cut. But pretty much when you set the stone to the wheel or go to your position where it's gonna touch the wheel, you're gonna go up 4 steps for this. It's gonna vary based on design. All designs you won't have to do that for, but this specific pavilion, it needed it. Because we were cutting from the center point to the girdle. But if you don't adjust the depth, it'll cut too deep. And it won't come to an exact point at the girdle. And you'll see that later. And then same with the group 2 facets in the P2. Facets. We only have to go from the center point of the stone up to about halfway up the girdle. We don't have to go all the way to the same depth as we were cutting the P1 facets. So for the P2 group 1 facets, I go up 4 steps, which is about half the depth of what we were cutting. For the P1 facets, and then I go another 2 steps, which is which is about 75% of the depth, or 25%. It's half of the half. A quarter of the depth. But yeah, that was just a little tricky thing I had to do with this specific design. And as I go through and cut different designs, and our testers go through and cut different designs, we'll make notes of that on the website so people know what to look for. So they're not going in blind. But there could be other ways to do this too. I'm not saying my way is the right way, perfect way. There's definitely more ways to do it than one. Could start cutting with a 3000 grit lap. Save a bunch of time. Not have to go from the 600 to the 1200 to the 3000 then to polish. I'll let you guys do your own research though. I'm not really a faceting expert. I've faceted, but I'm still learning, always learning with every stone, every stone's different, every design's different. It's like a puzzle. But the Gem Bot definitely helps with the precision. Now we're on the last facet. Made it through the P2s. 600 grit. It's going to move the stone up to the right, and then it's going to reset the cut page. So yeah, hopefully these how-to videos will just give you a little insight of how the machine moves, what steps you kind of need to take, but it's definitely not a set method on how you should be doing things. There's no exact one way to cut every stone. There might be, but every stone's a little bit different, so it's not going to be exactly the same. So we're just checking out the 600 grit, and you could see the P2 facets washed out the P1 facets. So the second group of facets we did, cut it too deep. That's alright, we're still getting the girdle to cutting the pavilion up to size the girdle up, so you can see there the P2 group 2 facets were completely way too large there. They went all the way up to the girdle. They only need to go halfway up the pavilion. Still looks cool. You can do it like that, but that's not what the design is calling for. This specific design, but feel free how to do whatever you want, really. It's just the art of it. It's a pretty unique stone. Why not have a unique design? So after we reset, we took the drip pan off, we moved our light out of the way, we moved our drip line out of the way, and we put our 1200 grit lap on. I'm just tightening it down right now. You have to go through and select the shape and design again, because everything was reset. There's a lot of round designs on here. There's the Triumph. Load the pavilion, press cut. 10 steps down. We're gonna do 2 swipes per step down. We're gonna move 30 steps per swipe. It's kind of a long settings for that, but it turns out pretty well in this cut. And the final 3000 grit turns out the best. See that here in a few minutes. Got our angle set automatically. Index is set. Press close to 0. Should know how to do this part by now. Skip to having it over the wheel, so you don't have to watch me press the button, getting it over the wheel, and we're just moving it down 1 step until we hear that chatter, and then we'll start our cut. You could hear that this wheel, this 1200 grit, is a lot smoother. It's not as wobbly as the 600 grit. I want to pay attention to the sounds of the machine too. Over time you'll realize what I'm saying. If you've never faceted before, at least. I'm sure if you faceted before, you go off. You cut based on sound. Skipped ahead to on facet number 6 now. It's doing its thing, going back to its position, cutting away. Some different angles. I think I was trying to examine the P1 facets here. It's kind of hard to get shots. So here we are moving to the P2 facets, group 1. And this is where I'm going to adjust 4 steps up to adjust the depth. Just moving the stone right. It's going to change the angle, and then we're going to reset it to the wheel, and then we're going to get it to the wheel, hear that chatter, and then press up 4 times. So the first 4 steps it won't be cutting the stone, steps it will. So it won't be cutting as deep. There's just some notes I took. I think I modified these notes a few times just to get it perfectly. At first I was going based off the Y location from the 600 grit and the difference of the Y location, the 1200 grit. I was just calculating how the difference in steps, exactly where we need to set the Y location at to start the P2 facets. Yeah, that's what I did. So I started at 4 steps higher. Later in the video, I had to go to work for the P2 Group 2 facets on the 3000 grit lap. So I actually made a custom little group, like a custom design, and I just added the pavilion facets for the Group 2. So I came back after work and I was able to just cut those. And then I just had them step down 2 steps and they came out perfectly. So you could do it that way too. You could separate all the pavilion facets into separate groups if you need to cut to different depths. More than one way to do it. Most of the designs you don't have to do this modification for. But I'm glad I picked a design with a little challenge in it for the how-to video so I could go over this stuff. So you can see it's not going through the motions, or it is going through the motions, but it's not cutting just yet. And here we examine the P2 and the Group 1 and Group 2 facets of the P2. And we can see we went a little bit deep there on the Group 1 facets. So it doesn't come exactly to a point. It's kind of rectangular at the top. But you'll see on the 3000 grit, it comes exactly to the point we need it to come to. Definitely looks better than before though. Yeah, we could also go back over the P1 facets, and it should bring that top line in a little bit. The more stones you facet, the more you'll realize how to move the lines. It's very difficult to get a good clear shot on a small stone like this, especially with the LED light. Kinda does that, and washes the whole image out. And I think it's trying to focus on the motor instead of the stone. There's a better shot. Still looks cool, but it's not exactly how the design is calling for. That's right, we still have the 3000 grit to go, and you can see our girdle's getting near where we need it to be. I wanted to leave a little color on each side. It's going to be like a little bit thicker of a girdle. There's our 3000 grit lap, kind of worn down on the edges, so I like to put a little 8K polish on this thing. Kind of gives it a pre-polish while we're cutting. Little experiments I do. I'm just spreading that polish around. I might add some more here in a second. You don't need much of that diamond paste to go a long way. Home in the machine, I'm going to speed this up. My notes. I like to take notes at every step. Look back at what works and what doesn't work. If I need to make some calculations based on the previous steps, I can look back and do that. So for this 3000 grit, we're going down 8 steps. So that means for the P2 facets, we're going to go down. We're going to move up 4 steps when we get there. We'll be halfway. And then, like I said earlier, I made a separate custom design group for the P2 group 2 facets, and I cut that to depth of 2 steps down. Just going through, showing all my notes for all the stones I've cut. Probably looks like a bunch of chicken scratch, but it's good to look back and see what errors I ran into. That's where I take error notes, go back through the code and fix it. So I skipped ahead to facet number 5. Not really showing the full facet process. I think we get the gist of that by now. The stone going down and then cutting left and right, going up, changing the index. During that time is usually when I'm doing other stuff, or watching a movie or something, or working on the machines. I think I'm trying to get a shot of the facets there. We're on the last facet for the P1 facets. Click next. It's going to move the stone right. It's going to change the angle. I turn off the wheel and the drip here. During the angle change, because we don't really need it on. Adding in a little more of this diamond paste. This wheel's pretty worn down. Just add a little of this 8000 grit for these P2 facets. Tap it in, tap it in, tap, 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 tap it in. I swirl it around, rub it in. Some of you might be like, why is he doing that right now? I don't know, I'm just trying different things, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. free to experiment. It's the fun of it. This whole project's an experiment, really. So we're on the P2 facets, group 1. And before I set this to the wheel, you can see I'm changing the angle up. Why am I doing that? Because I can. I'm going to inspect between facets. You could do this. You could inspect your facets that you just cut. Move your angle up, and you can change your index around, but remember to set it back to what you were originally at before you press start cut. So there's a little freedom there in what you can do. You're not stuck to not being able to check out your stone. Showing that you could press the button, change the index to move it around in a circle. Try to focus this bad boy. There's the focus I was looking for. So you can see the P1 facets. P2 facets were pretty much cut away by cutting the P1 again from the last grit. You can kind of still see the P2 facets in there. Now you want to set it back to the angle you're at and the index before you cut again. So that's just a little tip and trick for you. I'm sure there's a lot I haven't gone over. But I'm trying to go over as much as I can before people get their machines. And as I make more videos, more information will be available, and as the testers make videos, they'll figure out how to do certain things and share certain things with you. I'm sure those guys have a lot more experience than I do. Maybe not. We'll see. get these machines shipped out here. Moving the stone back to position after the angle change and after inspecting. It up 20 steps just to make sure I don't run into the wheel there. Looks like we're good though. Speed this up. Alright, so it looks like we're about at the wheel, doing our 1-step increments down until we hear the chatter, and then here I'm going to do 4 steps up. First group of P2 facets. It's half of the depth we're cutting. So we're cutting 8. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4. Press start. Now it's just doing its thing. It won't cut the first 4 steps down, but the second 4 steps down it'll cut. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys, what I did there. This is after that first facet for the P2 group 1 facets. I'm just gonna check to make sure this is correct before I go through and do all the rest of them. think it ended up being correct for this. You could also use your manual controls to test all this stuff. So we're inspecting. Stone's a little wet, so it's hard to see the facets. I think I dry it off here in a second. I'm just looking for that index that we just cut though. Can't wait to get this stone off the dop and get the crown cut. Hopefully we could see those pavilion facets from through the aquamarine. It's kind of cloudy, so I'm not sure how this one's going to turn out. Searching for that P2 facet. I think I go back and forth on it once I find it. Also mark your stone with the marker to see, like you color the whole pavilion with like a black Sharpie so you can know exactly what facet was just cut. Should have done that here. There it is. Oh yeah, that was it. Right there. There's it dried off. So yeah, there it is. Comes to a nice point. As we polish that in, it'll come to even more of a perfect point. That's what we're looking for. Now I'm just gonna let it do its thing. Now that I know that's correct. here I'm just showing what the design looks like and what we're supposed to have. What we're looking at on the stone. So yeah, it meets at a point at the girdle like it's supposed to. Here I'm just setting the index back to 7 and the angle back to 39.96 where we were at before. That angle is supposed to be 40, but how the gear ratio is for that stepper motor, I'm using a planetary gearbox, so it moves 0.036 degrees per step. So sometimes it doesn't go exactly to the angle, but 0.07 degrees isn't much of a difference off from what we're supposed to be at. So here I'm just showing creating that custom design for the P2 facets. So I went to design page, upper right it has a custom button. That's how you get to this page. And I wasn't clicking save here, so it wasn't saving the design. There it goes. Click edit, select pavilion. It takes a second to load because it's writing to the SD. I'm just going to input the angle we need and the facets we need. You can see at the top there in the upper left it says custom, in the upper right it says tri-pav tray. So our third tier of facets we're cutting. Triumph Pavilion tray for third. You could name your custom designs whatever you want. I I just did this because I had to go to work. I didn't want to leave my machine on while I was at work. So I could just set the index to 96 and then turn my machine off, then power it back on, and then load this custom design and then finish my cut after work. You always want to remember, when you're turning your machine off, you want your index at 96. And when a cut's complete, it automatically sets to, it resets everything where it's supposed to be. It sets your index to 96. But if you want to stop in the middle of a cut, you have to remember to set your index to 96 before you turn it off. Or you have to go back into the manual controls and then adjust some things. You can set your, you can count how many steps were off from the 96, and then I think there's a button that says 0 your machine or something, and then it sets whatever index you're at to 96, the 96 index. And then it'll be easier to tell where you're at with these new nice index gears I got on there, index wheels, little pointers. I don't have one on my machine right now, but the other machines have them. It's like $50 a piece for those things. You get them custom laser cut by Watchmaker. They turned out really awesome though. Custom design. Titanium. Won't rust. Man, my machine's dirty. I still need to make that how-to video for maintaining your machine. I don't think I've cleaned this thing in like a year. Just to show what a machine looks like after a year of cutting. No cleaning. It's still working pretty good though. Inspecting all those P2 group 1 facets before I make this cut. I think I'll be able to tell exactly here in a second. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. They all turned out pretty good. Probably should have used a round dot for this. Make sure it's exactly perfectly centered. I think these hexagonal dots throw it off a hair, so I'm not sure if you could see. See that little space up there? The corner of the dot went into that notch, so it threw it off round a little bit, or off center. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix this by removing the dop and then placing the little corners on the flat parts of the collet. I'm gonna go ahead and recut it, take it down to the 300 or 3000 grit lap again, and then I'll go back to polish. I won't record all that, but you'll see the results here. You see the deeper cut there. And then the opposite side is where the notch went a little deeper into the collet. So I think I went ahead and kept cutting, and I went on to polish, and then it really showed itself in the polish. So I took the stone, or the dop, out of the chuck, and realigned it. Not here yet, but just show how to set up the polishing wheel. Starting with the 8000 grit, diamond paste going to 14K, 50K, 100K, and 200K. Got my copper lap on, and I like to set it up kind of like a bullseye. More ideal to use separate laps, but I just have one of these copper laps, so this is how I set it up. You could wash the lap every time, which is probably the best thing to do. Here I'm just applying the 8000 grit. There's probably way too much paste on there, but it seems to get the job done. I'm going to use a different finger for each one to not contaminate the other layers. And I'm going lowest grit on the outside to highest grit on the inside. So when the wheel's spinning, the lower grits do not contaminate the higher grits. This 200,000 grit was kind of dry. I had to add some of this oil to it that I have. You can use like a WD-40 on your laps with the oil. I don't use water while I'm polishing, just use the oil to lube it up. Keep the stone cool while it's being polished. And I only use a little bit of pressure while I'm polishing. I still haven't perfected the polish, probably because this crappy setup I'm doing right now. Need to get some individual laps for each grit. Just working with what I got though right now. tapping it in. There's also a way to set up your copper lap. You could score it, or you could just leave it how it comes. The scoring, you use a razor blade to do cross hatches on it, and then you use like a bearing to push the grit into the grooves that you've scored. I'll leave a link for a video on that below this video. Some people like to score their laps, some do not. Leave that decision up to you. I do have a matrix lap, which is like a ceramic slab, but I never had too much luck with that. I've had best luck with this copper lap. They make other laps too, like tin and Dark Star. Gotta research all that. And I believe it's recommended to polish at a lower speed, lower RPM. So I went to 400 RPM. I was cutting at around 600 to 700. And I adjust the polish just so it puts a little bit of pressure on the wheel. This 8000 grit will remove material. But I think ideally you want to do one step down, just so there's enough pressure on the wheel while you're polishing. You don't want to be driving the stone into the copper lap. Just want a little bit of pressure, let the copper do the work for you, or the diamond paste do the work for you. Sometimes I like to use a little pen cap or something to push the polish underneath or onto the surface where it hasn't been pushed into the copper lap. And like I said earlier, this is probably way too much diamond paste on here. I encourage you to experiment, find out what works and what doesn't work. This video is really just to show how to use the Gem Bot and its controls. So you could see here the 8K polish. It definitely got shinier. Still some little scratches in there. And I have not taken the dop out of the chuck yet to fix that off-center problem we're having, but I will here in a second. There it is. So I'm just realigning it in the collet. Got the points on the flat surfaces, so they won't go into those little grooves there and knock it off center. I'm gonna recut it, or I did recut it, and this is back to polish after I recut it. I'm on the 14K right here. Actually, this is 50K, the 50K polish. Kind of see how shiny it is. Nice even depth. And then I never tried the cerium lap out yet. It's like a topper, it just sticks onto a metal lap, and it's impregnated with cerium. But it seemed to do a really nice job. Alright, and I've got the stone and the dop out of the chuck, examining it in the sunlight. It looks pretty good to me. Hopefully you guys learned something from this video. And I'm just waiting for my transfer jig to come in, and then I'll do a cut on the... I'll do a transfer and then a cut for the ground, and I'll probably record and make a how-to video for that, but it'll probably be pretty much the same as cutting the pavilion in terms of controls with the Gem Bot. It still had a little oil on it there. I think I went inside and cleaned it off. Some soapy water. But thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. And have a beautiful day. I'll leave you with these final shots here. This beautiful stone. Can't wait to get it off this dop and see what it looks like from the top. Some cool sparkle action going on in the gold part of the helidor, and there's some cool little rutile in the aquamarine. It's a really cool stone. Really glad how it turned out so far. And I definitely have learned a lot, and I hope you learned a lot. And if you see anything that I did, feel free to comment. Maybe you know a better way of doing it in terms of polishing. I'm still learning, really. Takes a bit to perfect the polish. It's definitely a skill. Same with transferring a stone. Seems easy, but requires precision, a little bit of know-how. I love how the very tip of the pavilion is gold from the helidor shining through the aqua. And I'm wondering if this stone's going to turn green when I look at it from the top. We'll find out soon. Alrighty. Bye-bye again.